Welcome back to Mount & Blade Bannerlord Abridged, where last time we started our character, a horse archery focused character, and then went through the process of doing millions of tournaments and battles against looters and bandits and stuff to get to the point when we were able to join up with armies as a mercenary. So we've joined the Khuzait faction, and now we're just going to go around hoping to grab some glory and perhaps also some loot in their wars. The army I was attached to went to lay siege to one of the Imperial castles. I don't know what this empire is even called. It's just called stuff like Northern Empire or Southern Empire or something like that. The something empire, the Romans basically. And here we are attacking one of their castles. It starts off with this weird screen that I couldn't really understand. I can click on a lot of these buttons, but they don't clearly do anything. So after a while, I gave up on trying to understand that, and after doing several more sieges, well, I still don't understand it, so anyone who does understand, write in the comments. And here we go with the siege. One inconvenient thing about sieges is that if you have troops under your personal command, you can't use them. Well, that's true for any fight where you're in someone else's army, really. So while normally that's not too much of a problem, in a siege it's a bit iffy because you don't know what the AI is going to do with your troops. It might just sacrifice them. We have no choice but to let it do that if it wants to, though. As for the fight, we already have a giant advantage, so there's not too much to it. We're just going to storm into the castle, and here the enemies are seen coming down our ladders to attack us. Very aggressive defense from the enemies. I'm just sitting here sniping away with my horse archery. That seems to clear the way a little bit, and our troops get inside the castle pretty much right away. Then I kind of looked around, found a ram opening one of the gates further down the castle wall, and inside we've got a bunch of guys trying to break in. But while I was just looking around, I think all the troops that already went inside killed all of the castle garrisons. And really not much happened in this battle, actually. It was just an introduction to sieges, I guess, a convenient tutorial. We did get a couple of not terrible bits of loot, so this is a step up from fighting bandits and stuff, including this mail coif, which is better than the hat I was wearing. I'm really hoping to get some decent equipment. If we can take out some heavily armed troops in battles, we may be able to upgrade ourselves, because I think in some cases I'm still using starting equipment, so we could use some upgrades. Now, once the battle's over, all we can do is wait to see what our army does for us next, and they end up going over here to the west, where we come across another battle. There are some more Khuzait forces fighting Empire forces. Just an absolute stomp, and I used this battle to try and work out how to get the polearm attacks going. Not only to train my character's polearm skill, but to train my polearm skill as a player, because as mentioned in part 1, for some reason I just couldn't get the hang of it. Like here, for example, we've got some nice easy targets. I've got this big run up, plenty of time to prepare my attack, and I miss after all that. So let's cut away from this before it gets any more embarrassing. Basically that kept happening for a while. Then we moved on to attack another castle. This one looked a bit harder. But as it happened, while we were building the siege camp, tons more enemy groups came over to look at us. And then whoever's commanding the army decided not to bother with this. So we ended up going to fight a village nearby instead, but that group of enemies is still there, so we're not really in a better situation. They kind of think about it for a while. I think some more enemies show up, and then they eventually pile in upon us to stop the raid, and we have the big one. Here we go. This is going to be more of a battle, about the same numbers and strength on both sides, but our presence does make our side a bit stronger because we're playing on easy, remember. I commanded a squad of horse archers, and it turned out we're fighting in the village, which was a bit of a problem really because of all these little vineyards around it. I rode through and the horse archers all got stuck in them trying to follow me, but after a while we got them through to be over here where it looks like there's some skirmishing going on. Some of the melee cav detachments are just hitting the enemy, and this fight was really a messy one. There was no formation or anything from them. They just had guys all over this village running about, which is perfect for us. Our horse skirmishing tactics work really well because we can just go here and there making attacks and the enemy are barely attacking back. I'm sure our melee cav are having a great time as well. I'm making the possible mistake of trying to follow the orders I'm getting at the top. I think one of the main things to learn is that when the AI commander is telling you to do things like to charge or to not charge, there isn't an enormous amount of logic behind it. It seems to be kind of random. So for now, I am doing what it says. When it says to engage in melee, I get in there, and here when it says to skirmish, we're going to pull everybody out and sit around outside the fight sniping in, just to be nice. I don't think there's any actual reward given to you for following your orders diligently. Here's my moment of fame. I was able to find a noble and awkwardly knock him off his horse with a very botched lance attack. Looking good for us. I don't think there's any particular advantage to doing that either. In the old games you would get loads of experience, I think, for taking out a noble. The fight eventually ends when I go to some more vineyards and finds that loads of enemy stuff was stuck up here as well. It took a long time to end the fight because of that, but we do get there in the end. And after this big one, we've got a whole load of decent loot we can pick up, including these padded shoulders, which are better than the scarf I'm wearing, so we can replace that. Means we look like an enemy officer or something, but hopefully that's fine. I think our look right now is pretty abysmal. The Fashion Lord quality is pretty low. So we could do with an upgrade, but the stats are good at least, and all that stuff we've picked up can be sold later to make some cash off this. And this campaign comes to an end now. The army just goes back towards our territory and disbands. There's a little bar in the bottom right you can see there. The army can only be together for a certain amount of time and then it forcibly disbands. Luckily it disbands in a good place. We're just on the border of our own territory, so we can just pop back in and start making some cash. First we sell all the prisoners we had with us, making us a cool grand. I'm going to spend a tiny bit of that right away upgrading our party. Our little party's starting to look pretty decent. But yes, joining armies means your party is kind of at someone else's command, so not too worried about that right now. Here's a little look at the character screen where you level up and stuff. Broadly speaking, I think the leveling up matters way less in this game than it does in the original. You seem to level up very slowly, and the bonuses you can get from leveling up aren't very good either. They tend to be very small things. So maybe it doesn't matter so much, and I probably won't talk that much about skills unless they ever happen to matter in some way. Another thing I got from the recent campaign was one of the horses we have ended up with in our inventory somehow is better than the one we have right now. I think the nice thing about having horses in your quote-unquote inventory is that not only do they increase your speed, but they don't seem to eat any food as far as I can tell, so you can actually have lots of horses with you and there's no penalty, although at this stage in the game I did not think that was the case and I was trying not to pick up horses actually. Here I am picking up some food, for the humans at least. So yes, while we've made a couple of grand off this campaign, we're still going to be paying it out in upkeep and food costs, so we need to make some more really to get ourselves off the ground. You do need a lot of money to get anywhere in the early game. I grabbed some more recruits and left town, then immediately got accosted by a much bigger enemy party that was sitting right outside. So I then had to sacrifice some of my recruits to escape along with some of my inventory by the looks of things. The upside is I got a couple of tactics level ups for overseeing their sacrifice or something, so that was good. After that I searched for the army for a little bit, then didn't find it, and ended up coming back to that same town because there was a tournament, and this is the final of that tournament. We are slapping away, this time slapping with spears, so it's a little bit different. Looks like we took that guy down pretty fast, and that's just because I cut out the first minute of slapping there where I did some more damage. And there we have it, another tournament win. We get a better sword than I had before, so actually did get something useful out of that. Anyway, then I did find the army and joined up to see what will happen. Unfortunately, this time it was a bit disappointing. We went and fought a party with like 5 guys in it, and that was that really. The army went away, so we left them after that. Went to sell a few things I've picked up here. Looks like I started buying some trade goods, or maybe I found them, I don't really remember. I was considering actually trying to use the trading system, but I haven't yet discovered the relationship between having inventory capacity and having mules in your party, so I actually wasn't able to carry very much. Instead, I did a quest for someone in the town to take out some steppe bandits, and they were all right next to the town, so that was good. Here's me trying to kill a steppe bandit. I thought I'll just ride behind them and poke away with the spear, but this was much easier said than done. Did eventually actually get some damage with the spear, and we are very slowly leveling it up, which I think makes you do a bit more damage maybe, or maybe it just increases the speed at which you can attack with it. Don't really know, and it doesn't really tell you, of course. Once that was done, I realized, wow, I made a lot more money doing that tiny quest, which was just a couple of really small battles, than I did following around the main army. And I realised that doing quests is probably the way to get a bunch of cash early on, and thought, well, I'll go and do a quest. And this proved to be a big mistake, so now I'm going to walk you through the quest that I did and how it destroyed me. So first, here's me picking it up. It's a quest to go find a spy in the next town over. It seemed pretty easy. You basically just have to go there and physically look for them by using the walk around town option. So here I am, we pop on over, and by walking around town you just go around and look at people sitting in the streets. And the idea was you can talk to people and sometimes they'll give you a clue about who this spy you're looking for is. We know it's some kind of warrior, I think, to begin with. Most people you talk to don't have any information, they just tell you that the spy knows you're looking for them or something like that. So the quest is basically to then go around the town just talking to all the NPCs. I started in the marketplace because it mentioned something about them being in the marketplace. Here was me finally getting a clue a while later. They said it's some sort of handsome young warrior. So we'll keep looking. My first thought was, isn't there some guy like that following me around? I have this follower character, something or other, the robber, and he looks really suspicious, sort of looking up, trying to avoid my gaze. He probably knows that I suspect him, but I don't think it actually is him. So yes, I had to keep going around asking more and more people, and I eventually exhausted all the people I could ask in the marketplace and started going around all the back alleys and streets and stuff looking for more people. This guy gave me a clue, said it's someone who's middle-aged, contradicting the earlier person's tip, and someone who has normal-looking hair or something like that. This person tells me it's someone with a beard, so that's good. It's someone with hair and a beard. Not an enormous amount to go on because lots of people have them. Here was someone who didn't have hair but did have a beard. This was the first person I found where I had the dialogue option to accuse them of being a spy, so this told me that basically I needed to find other people I was allowed to accuse. There's a kind of weird queue thing going on. I did notice the town is rather glitched out. A lot of the NPCs are just standing in little like single file lines around the town. I think they just didn't correctly go to wherever they're supposed to be. Or maybe they are just queuing for something, I don't know, it just looks a bit strange. So anyway, we go around getting up in people's grills like this, trying to get some intel, but most people don't really have any. I'm going to show you now a clip of me walking up to a group, looking at them, thinking, are any of them the person I'm looking for, talking to a couple to see if they have some clues, and then walking away, because this is what this quest was, and while I've been cutting out the vast majority of it, now you have an idea of how bored I was getting actually just trying to do this quest, especially because you walk quite slowly around town. Eventually, I found another guy, the second guy I was allowed to accuse of being a spy. He doesn't meet the description, but I just clicked on it like right away. I was like, okay, I'm just getting out of here. Like, let's just say it's this guy. And after accusing him, he challenges me to a duel. At first I thought, oh, maybe this is the guy then. Maybe if it's not the guy, nothing happens, and if it is the guy, you have to fight a duel with them. But as it turns out, no, this is not the guy. You just get to fight a duel in the Circus Maximus with a crowd and everything, a very official thing. So we just kill him with a bow shot to the face. That should probably be against the rules for dueling. And we failed the quest, so I've successfully got out of there. It took a lot longer in real life, of course, and it actually caused me to rage quit the game because I felt so hopeless about what I was going to do in the game after this. I was like, well, I felt like I've tried the main options and neither of them seemed to be going anywhere particularly fast. But eventually I regained some patience and came back to it. The first thing I did was track down the guy who hired me as a mercenary and tell him I don't want to be a mercenary anymore because the Khuzait faction stopped being at war with people. So while you can still be a mercenary and just sort of hang about, not much was going on. So by leaving my mercenary contract, that just allows me to be a mercenary for someone else instead. So I thought I'll go to another faction that might actually be in a war, so we can go once again in search of glory and loot in some big battles. And indeed in search of the big battles, because they're more interesting gameplay than a lot of the other stuff. So for that purpose I went south to the Blue Empire faction. I forget what they're called, maybe it's the South Empire, and found someone to allow me to sign on as a mercenary. And then after a really long time actually I eventually found their army, and they've got a big army chilling right here. And then we'll see where that army takes us. The thing about these big armies though is that they eat a lot of food, and this turns out to be kind of a weakness in the whole army system. The armies tend to never have enough food to get to their destination, and if you have food in your inventory, they take it from you, as it says in the bottom left there. And that became pretty annoying to me because we don't have that much money, and buying food is actually kind of a big deal right now, and they're just taking it from me, and I was getting pretty annoyed by that. But that aside, we do actually go and besiege this big city. It's got a hefty garrison, but our army is absolutely massive, so we are ready to do this, and soon we go in for the siege assault. Once again, I'm on horseback with a bow, so we're not really ideally suited to siege assaulting, but I can come over here to where our men are climbing up on the walls and do a bit of sniping to try and help out. Not really sure why, but we gain tactics skill points as well for being here while the battle's happening, so that's nice. Now the only issue with this plan is that I only have 20 something arrows, so once I've shot them and maybe killed a couple of enemies, that's that really. The only other option is to jump in there myself, and we're not well equipped for melee and we don't have the skills for it either. I thought maybe they would be opening up the front gate and we could get inside the town and have a little bit of a maraud around in there. The problem is, I think the AI might have thought about opening up the gate but gave up at the last second, so what they've done is move this massive set of troops to stand in front of the gate, but they're not doing anything, there's no ram and they're not attacking it. And indeed you can attack the gate, as we discover. It has health, so we can destroy it with our sword if we hit it billions of times, but unless the entire group's doing it, that's probably going to take a while, and the group is literally just standing there being hit by arrows. So we're taking casualties very quickly and achieving nothing. I decided not to hang around to watch that, and I eventually went down the wall further and found this other set of ladders. I thought, well, let's climb up, because I was the last person in the queue here, so I thought I can go back down the ladder if it looks really bad. And indeed, upon reaching the top, you can see we've made no progress. The enemy is still right next to the top of the ladder, and they're just constantly attacking anyone who goes over the top. And I don't even have a shield, so I thought, well, we're probably not going to do that. Started climbing down, but oh no, a whole bunch of guys started climbing up behind me, so that seems to be giving me some pressure to actually go up and kill myself. But I was stubborn about it. I was like, no, I'm not going up. They do block you from going back down. However, you can press space to jump off the ladder, so we get away with it. We'll send this new squad up to die one by one, just being stun locked at the top by like 5 guys attacking them at once. And that's the battle, really. I went back over to the first set of ladders where I was shooting earlier, and there are just bodies all over the place. We're still queuing up to climb up, and we've made no progress. We're again being killed one by one at the top. All I can do is chill. I was kind of looking around on the ground to try and pick up arrows, but arrows were coming out of the town and hitting stuff as well. So I ended up just kind of cowering in the corner, waiting for something to happen. Figured if we go up, we'll just die and that's the end of the fight for us, but there's nothing else we can do. So I ended up joining the queue and actually going up to see what was going on. And indeed what's going on is we're going over and being killed one by one as I suspected, and the enemy have control of the wall still. We're very slowly damaging them, and the odd arrow is coming in as well and taking them out. Our archers are probably picking up most of our kills in the thing at the top right there, monitoring the kills, but broadly it's just talking about our side being annihilated as they go over the walls. So after jumping off the ladder and nearly dying, I just chilled again in my cowering corner. Then as the enemy were almost defeated, I did come back to take another look. Here you can see the walls kind of being cleared out by sheer attrition. Now there are only a few enemies, and with that I felt a bit safer actually going over the top. What I wanted to do was jump past these enemies and run into the town somewhere. However, the full damage I took jumping off the wall there was more than I expected actually. So we just die unceremoniously of broken shins, and that's the end of our fight. We can fast forward the rest of the battle, and we do win eventually, but because of those abysmal tactics, our side lost like 1,000 of the 1,200 troops we had making that assault. So enormous losses, absolutely abysmal performance. Why did I join this faction? We got a couple of prisoners and a little bit of loot, but overall it was trash actually. Fighting some regular bandits would have got us just as much stuff here. I was really looking for like a big set of armor or an expensive sword that would be worth thousands, and they certainly exist in the game, but we're not getting them as loot. Maybe we need to be higher level or something to be able to get them. The enemies that have them and drop them are certainly there on the field. Not really sure, but anyway, in the aftermath we've taken that city. However, there's an enemy army right outside it, and now they fight us. We've got barely any troops because everyone's wounded or dead, meaning we're now in a bit of trouble. I actually can't participate in the fight, which I eventually realised here after not knowing what to click on. It's because I have 0% health. If you're not alive, then you can't see the battle, you can't do a manual resolve, so it just does this auto-resolve for us. It was going pretty badly as expected. I was thinking, can we retreat? But no, it just retreats your troops, not your army. We can't advise our commander to not fight this battle. Eventually I was like, no, we can't put up with this, we have to retreat. But all it does is take you back to this menu where you can once again auto-resolve. The other option was to abandon the army, and I didn't want to take that, figuring it'd give you some sort of dishonor bonus or cancel your mercenary contracts and not let you take another one or something like that. So, we lose the battle and we are taken prisoner. We lose all of our party. We've probably lost some of our inventory as well, and we're not doing too well for money. In fact, we're pretty close to the situation we were in at the start of the game, and it's at this point we begin to realise that Mount & Blade Bannerlord is technically a roguelike, because if you lose any of your fights, you get sent back to square zero unless you've already made it to a point in the game when you own land and businesses and have an income, so it doesn't matter how much money and inventory you have at a specific time, because you can just always get more. Yes, it's the first Marxist roguelike game. Luckily in this case, we can actually get out of being a prisoner by bribing people. So here we are, back at it again. It's just us. We've lost a lot of our inventory, but one handy thing is they don't take away anything you have equipped. So our best items we do still have. That's something. I'm sure if we got stripped down to just like prisoner robes or something, I would have rage uninstalled, but we are still somewhat viably able to fight. We need to get out of here though. We're somewhere in enemy territory, so I now need to get back to some towns allied to the guys I'm a mercenary to. I went back to the town that we just captured, since that was the nearest place, but it was currently in the process of being lost to that faction again. Thought maybe I could somehow get involved here and do something, but no, you can only don't get involved, so I don't. Not that us being involved would really help there, I just thought it could be entertaining to go and attack them from the back on my own or something. Anyway, I do make it back to our territory and find another army to join. It wasn't lost on me the fact, by the way, that all of my army campaigning hasn't actually got me anything. We haven't really gained much money or equipment at all. I was hoping it would be something like the freelancer system, or the freelancer mod I think it is, in the base Mount & Blade. I've never actually played regular Mount & Blade vanilla, by the way, so I don't know what features I'm used to are actually part of the game. But yes, you used to be able to, in whatever I was playing in the past, join an army just as a foot soldier and they would give you food, and it matters less if the army is defeated, you just join it again. And you'd have access to the high tier loot that powerful enemies might drop, which could give you some good stuff in the early game, using the fact that you're invincible of course to be one up on the other foot soldiers who unfortunately don't have that privilege. So that's not happening in this campaign and in this game. And so far I'm fairly sure we've actually lost a fair bit of money by trying to be part of these big wars and campaigns. And yes, I had noticed, so we're probably going to get out of that at some point. However, I hadn't lost my hope yet, so we are still going to do some more engagements. And right here I'm being drawn into an engagement. The army I was hanging around with is fighting someone. We can't actually see who it is because I was looking somewhere else on the map. But let's just fight whoever this is. It's a balanced fight. That should mean we win with the 2/3 damage to your own side thing taken into account. But of course it depends what the AI does. We should have won that battle with the siege earlier a lot easier. Anyway, as you can see for what I'm doing, I decided to do some more polearm practice, just marauding around stabbing guys. With so much activity the AI tends to get distracted, so you're kind of safe doing this. And I feel like I started to get into the swing of things with this battle. Here's a good sequence. We start off taking down one of the enemy's nobles. I think that might have been the leader of their army as well. Then this isolated soldier we hit somehow. Didn't look like that stab would hit, but we grabbed it. Then we pick up someone in this group over here as well. There you go, 3 kills in a row. It doesn't get better than that, and I'm pretty sure it didn't get better than that for a long time as well. But yes, looks like I'm starting to get used to attacking enemies. I think using the first person camera makes it a lot easier for me with this polearm style. Anyway, after marauding around some more, I eventually get unhorsed. This is a bit of an issue because I could be unhorsed in the midst of a bunch of enemies and then immediately killed, but because we're later in the battle, the enemy were mostly actually retreating and I was being hit from a distance as they fell back. So I was alright, I managed to escape from that situation, and our cav went on to chase the enemy down and win us that battle, although we didn't really gain anything in particular for doing so. Just some measly bits of renown, like 0 point something renown, and the odd prisoner and bit of equipment, nothing special. So yes, another example of why we probably shouldn't be wasting time doing this. I'm sort of in it for the fun, because it's more interesting to fight in these big battles, but in terms of the game design, you clearly are not intended to be doing this. So that's where we'll be going for the next part really, to get out of my fight in the big wars mindset, and we'll be going back to what I'm pretty sure you're supposed to do, and that is just killing absolutely billions of looters and bandits to get enough money to buy your own business, and that's where the game really starts. Once you have a background income and you can have a permanent supply of food and troops, then there's a lot more stuff you can do with this game. So that will be the goal for next time. We'll have a couple more battles with these armies until I finally give up on it for good. Although there are a couple more interesting and decent battles as well. I think it picks up from here. Well, you be the judge in part 3.